Hello, welcome to Turbo Talks. My name's Angelica Sessions.
And I'm Tristan Kimple.
And we're here today to answer all of your social media questions. So beginning with a few questions we received on Facebook. This one is from SVO Josh Fenley. And he wants to know the differences in the exhaust housing like T3 versus Vband inlets.
So the biggest difference here is going to be that a T3 is typically a 4-bolt inlet, and it comes with either a 4-bolt discharge or a Vband discharge. And then we also offer the T3 Vband in and out, which will have Vband both inlet and discharge.
The next question is from Cody Johnson, and he'd like to know how we rate a turbo for horsepower and how to use that data in your own application.
So when it comes to turbos, we rate our turbo based off real world experiences. So all of our turbos are tested on actual vehicles. We send them out pre-production, they go on a vehicle, we get some dyno numbers, and we actually average those numbers together to come up with our horsepower rating. As far as using that for their application, you can look at the horsepower goals that you have for your car and then kind of look at the turbos and how they correspond with your goals. Of course, it's always going to be a little bit higher, a little bit lower, depending on the application, so it's always best to give us a shout.
The next question is from Rick Stancic, and he would like us to actually show AR differences and how they can affect a truck or a car's performance just by swapping the AR housings.
So Rick, depending on if we go larger or smaller on the AR, it will affect the power band, to say, in a particular application. We can shift the power band down with a smaller housing or up with a larger housing. It does play a bigger role in sizing the actual turbos themselves, but you can check more about AR in another Turbo Talk video that we have.
Next is Andy Mira, and he wants to talk about what oil we should use in our turbo cars.
So in turbo cars, obviously we're dealing with a lot of heat. We're adding extra heat with the turbo manifolds and etc. under the hood. So one of the biggest things with oil is we want its protection. So using a high-grade synthetic oil is always advised, as it can withstand the heat a lot better. We suggest using our HPL lubricants.
Moving on to the YouTube questions we received. This one is from Steel Mesh, and he wants us to please talk about air filtration for turbocharger systems.
Okay, so when it comes to your turbocharger, obviously it's a good investment to put something over the inlet to protect the compressor wheel from damage from rocks and stuff like that. They may kick up off the road or the racetrack. Two different ways of doing that is either with an air filter or with some sort of guard or screen. Either way, you want to make sure that the air filter or guard doesn't impede the flow on the turbo too much, because that can cause some other issues. You want to go with a good quality air filter and something that has an inner structure so that it won't actually suck and collapse the air filter into the turbo, damaging the compressor wheel.
Next is Tauro GSX STI. He wants to know if you can tell him if he can convert a Precision 5858 Gen 1 to a 5862, and can it be converted to a 5862 Gen 2?
Okay, so 5858 Gen 1, yes, we can do a conversion to a 5862 by changing out the turbine wheel and the exhaust housing. So we can do that as a journal bearing unit, or we can offer you an upgrade into a ball bearing unit. As far as going to a Gen 2, it's a different story, because the compressor wheel compressor cover, as well as the turbine wheel and the turbine housing, are all needing to be changed out to go to a Gen 2. It's not cost effective, so we generally suggest looking at purchasing a new Gen 2 unit.
And the last question from YouTube is from Alex Thompson, and he would like to know if we will see Gen 3 turbos on our website at some point.
So this is a question we've been asked quite a few times this year. And yes, you're actually going to see Gen 3 stuff coming to the website in 2018. Right now we're shooting for first quarter to release the Gen 3 units.
Moving on to our Instagram questions. CWW6 wants to know how to spot out a fake precision turbo from a real one.
So this is one of those areas that's a little bit harder to do because there are some copies out there that have done a really good job of copying our logos on turbine housing, compressor housings. One of the best things I suggest most customers do is to take some pictures of the turbo itself and send them to one of us here. You can call us and we'll give you an email address. You can send us the pictures. We can look at them. So a few little things that we can tell if it's a real unit or not. There's also some inscription that we can ask for, and you can look at the turbo and see if those numbers are engraved. Most of the fake units don't have those on it.
Fast Mover Motorsports would like to hear how turbos with different cold sides can swap into the same hot side to change different size or class spec turbos quickly.
So this would be one of those deals where somebody that's running like a Pro Mod, for instance, turbo, if you wanted to run X275 and you wanted to run at different weights, or if you wanted to run your X275 car, for instance, at World Cup Finals, they allow you to use different sizes on the inducer. So you could use the same 103 exhaust wheel on both an 88 compressor wheel and a 98 compressor wheel and be legal for both X275 and World Cup Finals, depending on the weight of your car. And it's as simple as just taking the V-band off, leaving the housing attached to the hot side, and just pulling the center section and putting the new one in, tighten the new V-band clamp back up.
Next question is from A. Duran 916. Why did you get rid of water cooled and keep oil cooled for the turbos?
So as technology moves forward and we get into better bearing technology that can withstand higher thrust loads, better heat dissipation, it's not as necessary to keep the water cooling on the center section as it was years ago. That being said, we decided to delete the water cooling on most of our turbochargers. There are still some out there that we produce, like our replacement series, that we still have water cooling in case you want to use it.
Next is, hey, it's Josh 1985. What's more efficient, a single turbo setup or a twin turbo setup?
Well, again, this is going to be one of those situations where it really depends on what you're using the vehicle for. If it's a pure race application, it may be more efficient to use a single turbo. If it's a street car, it may be more efficient to use twins. It's usually best give us a call and one of our sales technicians can talk to you and explain the benefits between twins or singles for your particular application. If you're trying to go with a lower horsepower setup, sometimes a single is better. High horsepower, it really depends. How big's the motor and what are you looking for as far as spool up and racing conditions?
Jameson would like to know more about compressor housing surge ports.
So the surge ports are pretty much just like our slotted covers. It's just a different way that we machine them. And you can actually check that out in another video we did showing compressor covers. But as far as the ports themselves, they're actually there for anti-surge or for compressor surge. So this is where an engine cannot digest the amount of air that the turbo is actually producing. It starts to back up in your piping and starts to push against the back of the compressor wheel. It will usually help try to stall the compressor wheel out as that air is backing up and trying to push out. So by putting the ports in, we allow a way for relief so that that air backing up can actually relieve out those ports and doesn't stall the compressor wheel.
The next question is from Juicy Tank, and he would like to know more about wastegate and turbo relationships and how to decide on what size goes best with the chosen turbo.
So it's a really good question. So depending on what you're doing with the turbo, single turbo or twin turbo is really going to dictate what wastegate you use as far as size and if you need one or two. It's kind of hard to give you an exact answer on what wastegate to use with what turbo because it's really application dependent. So it's really going to depend on if it's a 4-cylinder, 6-cylinder, if you're using a twin scroll manifold or an open, or if maybe it's a twin turbo V8 application. So the best thing to do is to, once again, give us a call and we can walk you through what your setup is and what wastegate you're going to need for your application. I will say that on applications where you need to get really low boost with a larger turbo, you are going to have to run a bigger gate. And if you're not so worried about getting really low boost on a larger turbo, you can usually get away with running a little bit smaller of a wastegate. But give us a shout and we can definitely get you set up with what size you need.
Another question we frequently receive is, do we sell turbo kits?
So we actually don't. We are a turbo manufacturer. We manufacture the turbos themselves, wastegates, full line of flanges and clamps, as well as some other supporting parts, but we actually don't do a full turbo kit. If any of our customers are interested in a turbo kit, there's a lot of companies out there that use our products in their kits.
Thank you for watching this edition of Turbo Talks. We highly appreciate your questions. If you want to leave us more questions, we will do another video answering those questions. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. The next, I don't know.
That's okay. I can edit that stuff out.
Okay. Two,
Alright.
3, 2, 1 again.
Great.
Oh, I just turned
Did
it
that
off.
really hurt your ear?
Great.
All right, we're ready.
Do it for Dale, man!